Stop the insanity. Get your focus back onto what really matters in life. Your faith, your family, your finances, and your future. Sit back, listen, and change the trajectory of your life. You are listening to the Money for Life podcast. Let's welcome your hosts, Teresa Kuhn and Rick Sapio.
All right, everyone, this is Rick Sapio, and I'm here with my partner in crime, not in crime, and making the world a better place, we hope, Teresa Kuhn. Welcome back, Teresa Kuhn. We're here to influence you in four really important areas: faith, family, finances, and future. And Teresa loves talking about this topic because she just hears it from the thousands of clients she has interacted with over the years. And the topic we're going to talk about now, it's so close to my heart, is life is not fair. Matthew McConaughey, of all people, I used to work with an employee who was a fraternity brother of Matthew McConaughey. He said during college, the guy was always reading books about success, and he was very introverted in college anyway. He went to the University of Texas, but he has a quote. He says, "Life is not fair. It never was, and it is not fair now. And it won't ever be fair." Do not fall into the trap of waiting for fairness, the entitlement trap of feeling like you're a victim. Don't fall into that trap, he says, because you are not a victim. What if we all looked at life as being grateful for it, like waking up and saying, you know what, I got another day, I got another chance, I'm on the right side of the grass, and having immense gratitude for your life?
I think that's the great mindset to approach life, right? And I've got very successful clients. We both have worked with very successful people over the years. And typically they don't approach life from an entitlement perspective. You know, we've got this recurring theme of takers and makers. And I love those two words. It rhymes. It's easy to remember. Are they a taker or are they a maker? And typically makers don't come from a place of entitlement, and they don't come from a place of victimhood. In fact, makers make stuff happen. And if you're in the mindset of making stuff happen, you're not waiting for anybody to help you make something happen. In fact, when people stand in your way, you go through them, you go above them, below them, to the side of them, you're tackling, you're figuring stuff out. But every now and then, I think we all can fall to a mindset of, gosh, that's not fair, or gosh, that's not right, or gosh, you know, I have no control over this. And it's that victim mindset. And a very close friend of mine a couple weeks ago was talking about a business deal that he felt was not fair. And he had found out that somebody else got a better deal. But it brought to me an awareness of, you know what? Sometimes business deals are not fair. And if somebody else got a different deal, you know what? Kudos for them. They negotiated a better deal. They did something you weren't able to do. So why is that a fairness issue? And that shuts you down from a creative perspective. As soon as you think you don't have responsibility or you don't have control and you can't make something happen, what happens to your brain? Your brain stops thinking about the possibilities. And you go into the reptilian mode and you start thinking of all the bad things and why is this happening to me? And, you know, that's just not a productive state. Tony Robbins talks about that all the time, right? What's your state? What's your physiological state? It's not a great state to be in when you're thinking life isn't fair and why me?
What's interesting about that good friend of yours who came to you and said that this deal wasn't fair is that person was me. And the minute you called that out and you said, you know what, life isn't fair, let's do a podcast about it, I said, you're right. I got over it in about a minute. And the reality is people dwell in this place of fairness for months and years. It's why I always say we sell 6 billion pills for anxiety and depression in the United States per month. And you know who's feeling empowered by that? The drug companies. They are creators. They're creating more drugs for more anxiety and depression type issues. This brings me back to a story of an old friend of mine, Laura, who I would meet with once a month, and she desperately wanted to be an entrepreneur and desperately wanted to have her own business, and I would coach her. And this is many, many years ago. And she would always bring up, no, I can't do it because of this reason or that reason. But this person was an incredibly talented chef, and she wanted to have a home-based business. And I'll never forget, I ripped this article out about this woman from Puerto Rico with 6 kids, no education, on welfare. Um, Her husband died and left the family an immense amount of debt. And she started from nothing, baking cookies in her home, and ended up building a 100 million in revenue business. And so I would say, Laura, look at what this lady did. And she would say, oh, she was just lucky. I'm like, well, you don't have any kids, and she had 6 kids, and you have a lot of money, and she had no money, and she had debts from her husband, and you don't have that. You have everything, but I don't understand it. But no matter what I showed her, there was always an excuse. There was always a victim mindset. It was always, that's not fair. She had this advantage, or they hit the lottery, or whatever, even though it wasn't true. And it starts in our minds. Our minds play evil, evil tricks on us. Just in fact, today, there was a woman I talked to about an executive position in my company, and it was an interview. And in digging deep in the interview, I found out that this woman realized, even though she had an amazing background, she had actually an MBA from Wharton, if you could believe that, Wharton School of Business, but she was involved in a scandal peripherally several years ago, and somehow this scandal ended up in the newspaper, and it's all she talked about. And I said, do you think it's easy being Donald Trump? She goes, what does that have to do with anything? I said, well, just imagine any president. Most presidents have 1 billion people that would like to see them dead. Could you imagine what it's like with that against you? You had a negative article written about you 12 years ago, and it's still present in your mind. Are you kidding me? Can't you operate with maybe somebody not liking you, like the author of that article? And so I think her problem, which I was very clear about, I said, I can't move forward with you. And the problem is not in a newspaper article, it's between your ears. The problem is how you see yourself, and you see yourself as a victim of this stupid little incident from 12 years ago. So, how do we overcome, Teresa, this life isn't fair way of being as the default way of being for the United States?
From a pattern perspective, everything has to start with the individual. Everything has to start with me. I need people around me who I ask to hold me accountable if I ever go into a taker perspective or a victim perspective, right? Just like you admitted to, you know what? You rarely play the victim card. In fact, I was kind of shocked to hear that. And I felt very comfortable telling you, hey, calling you out for it. So having people in your life that will call you for those times that, we will go there. And so it starts with our own circle, having an agreement with somebody else that you'll hold them accountable. Starts with your family. It's not a coincidence or an accident that our culture and our society today has this taker victim mentality. It only takes 2 generations of educating children to change a culture. And I don't know how many generations ago, right, where we didn't have a victim mentality as a culture, as a society. I'm talking about the greatest generation that fought world wars. Did they go over there and say, woe is me, life isn't fair? I don't know, maybe individually they thought that way, but as a collective society, we didn't. We had a mandate, we had an objective, and we went out there. Today, imagine if we had to go fight, world wars. In terms of our culture, in terms of our society, in terms of our young people, I can't see that we are mentally strong enough.
Teresa, we won't even leave our houses unless the government pays us to leave our houses. It's really quite insane. This is the country that my ancestors and your ancestors came to because it was the land of the free, home of the brave, not home of the person with their hand out. That is absolutely the antithesis of what our founding fathers were trying to build here. They were trying to build a land of opportunity. And so many people hate what this country was founded on because they have a victim mindset. And the funny thing is, they have gotten so much fruit from the land of the free and the home of the brave. And I know it's unfortunate, but every great thing, unfortunately, if you don't focus on the values of that enterprise, whether it's a company, a family, a country, a world, doesn't matter. Values don't just end overnight, they crumble slowly over time. And that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing it because people are actually celebrating victimhood. Of course, life isn't fair. It never was fair. And I'm a victim too. And what else isn't fair? It's really quite shocking to see the unraveling of a culture before our eyes. So we're not here to pour water on you. We're actually here to empower you. What we want to do as a result of this podcast is turn you into a creator at all times and to do what Teresa did with me, which is to call people out when they're being victims, when they're not being empowered, when they're feeling like life isn't fair. I do that with my kids and with my wife all the time, and she does it with me. The bottom line is the only thing you have when you wake up in the morning is an opportunity to make your life and the lives of others better. Isn't that pretty cool? Isn't that a great opportunity?
It's a fantastic opportunity. And it's not just a word, the opportunity you've got is to go out there and make an impact or go out there and serve people. It really is a heart-centered way to be. And the more focus you have on other people, mental illness, anxiety, stress, depression, where's the focus? The focus is internal. The focus is inside. The focus is in all those crazy thoughts that someone's having. How do I know all this? Well, of course, I've been depressed before. Of course, I've been anxious and stressed before. And I've learned how to observe my thoughts so that I can understand what's going on in my brain so I can change it. That took a lot of years. That didn't happen overnight. But when we serve others, when we think about the impact that we can have on others, when we're thinking about being a maker, your brain goes into a different state of mind. And, Rick, it's really funny. A very close friend of mine went to business finishing school. I asked her, what'd you take away from this weekend? And she said, I never thought that life wasn't fair. I thought what I was entitled to in this life was to be happy. I never thought that I wasn't entitled to be happy. What a realization.
Yeah, that's a tough one. And we did a podcast on happiness versus fulfillment, which should be the goal. And fulfillment is the product of a life well lived that was hard, that you endured. And I had a psychotherapist many years ago who would cure depression of people, thousands of people over many decades. And all he would do is he would ask people to describe why they're depressed. And he heard me, I, me, I, me, I. And he would get them to focus on something that they could do to make someone else's life better. And he told me he had almost a 100% cure rate of depression in 3 sessions. And sometimes psychotherapists like to work on an issue for months and years on end. But if you really want to cure somebody of a depression, from what I learned from him, and it may not be true 100% of the time, but a large majority of the time, is getting their focus away. And I have a sister that battles depression. Whenever I talk like this, she goes, "No, I don't want to help anybody. This is about me." And she actually enjoys being in that unresourceful, depressed space. She enjoys being a victim. Um, but we're all different, so we're not expecting everybody to listen to this podcast and change overnight. But it's a gradual shift, and it's an opportunity for you to learn and wake up and call yourself or others out when you see them in a non-resourceful victim place. Any final words, Teresa?
Just that what we're doing here is hopefully planting seeds, opening up the possibilities that wherever you are right now, even if it's oh, life is not fair. I'm depressed. I'm stressed. I'm anxious. I'm overwhelmed. You know what? That can change like this. We just want to plant that seed. And what are the action items? I think it's so easy as having somebody in your life hold you accountable, and you both hold each other accountable. I think that's like the easiest action item. And if you don't have anybody that you feel can hold you accountable to this, find somebody. I think that means you need to elevate the people that you hang out with, because victims do like other victims, and empowered people do like to hang out with other empowered people.
I'm going to finish with a quick story. I remember when I was studying for a really important regulatory test in 1988, of all things. And I went to this class, and there was 30 people in the class. And the pass-fail rate on this test was like 50-50. So 50% of the people that took the test passed it the first time, and 50% of the people failed the first time. And as I said, it was, a classroom, and it was a 5-day class, 8 hours a day. And on the second day, I was in the front row, and I asked the teacher, I said, how am I going to do on the test? And she goes, well, in my class, 80% of the people pass, and those people over there fail. I go, what people over there? And she said, those people. All the people in the back row that are all talking to each other will fail. And I could just tell. I could tell by their body posture. I could tell by how they're congregating. I could tell by how they're slumping their shoulders. But all the people in the front row, or in these rows, and she pointed, that they're all going to pass. And lo and behold, she was 100% right. And I got to know her pretty well. Her name is Deirdre. I'll never forget it. Isn't that interesting? How people already decide how they're going to do on a test by how they hold themselves and where they sit in a room and how proud they are of hanging out with other victims. So, interesting topic. Teresa, thank you for bringing it up. I love doing Money for Life with you. Everyone, thanks for listening, and share the message of Money for Life with your family, with your team, with your acquaintances, with your network. Thanks for listening.
You have just experienced Money for Life. Implement these strategies today and create a life by design. Have a blessed day.